Welcome to my channel. I'm so excited that you are here with me today. I am Cynthia Kane and I am really excited to share with you today about the 5 reasons why people don't listen. So, how many times have you asked a question to a friend or a partner or a family member and all you heard was silence? I can raise my hand to that one. Or after answering someone at work and giving the details on a project, 15 minutes later, the same person asks you the same question, right? I'm sure that if you think about it, there are many times during the day where it just feels like people aren't listening to you, right? And the worst part is how it feels, right? So you try different methods, but eventually you just close down because it's the same response over and over and over again every single time. And in those moments, it's really hard to feel anything but invisible, uncomfortable, less than, right? Insecure, disconnected, and uncertain that anything you have to say really matters at all. And to feel that what you have to say doesn't matter is just, that's, it's an overwhelming feeling that then leads to, well, if what I have to say doesn't matter, do I matter at all? So if we understand the reasons people don't listen, then we can begin to shift our behavior so that eventually we're heard. So today I want to talk about the 5 reasons that people don't listen. If this content sounds interesting to you already, just go ahead and click subscribe. Happy to have you here. Okay, so 5 reasons that people don't listen. The first reason that people don't listen is because we take things personally, right? It's very hard to listen when someone is saying, if we're feeling, when what somebody is saying has us feeling attacked, criticized, or judged. Most of the time, if we're feeling this way, we get extremely defensive, right? The last thing I want to do is then pay attention to what the person I'm with is saying, right? So my focus instead is on proving the other person wrong or justifying my actions or why I didn't empty the water from the tea kettle, right? I feel threatened, so instead of listening, I just immediately attack with the need to prove myself. So we don't listen when we take things personally because all we hear is you're wrong. You didn't do this right. You're stupid, you're incapable, you're bad, right? So that's one of the reasons we don't listen, because we take what the other person has to say personally. The next reason we don't listen is because we think we know others better than we know ourselves. Have you ever been about to say something and then whomever you're with tries to finish your sentence? Or they say something like, oh, I don't think you're going to like this sauce. It'll be too spicy for you. But then you do end up liking it. And by liking it, then the person gets annoyed and says, but you don't like spicy things. So we don't listen when we think we know someone better than they know themselves, or when we make assumptions. And instead of asking questions to clarify, we keep on assuming what may or may not be true. And it's impossible to listen if we believe our interpretation of things is the only one. So the next way that we don't listen is that we don't trust what others say to be true. If we believe our opinion to be right and someone else's to be wrong, well, then it's very difficult to listen, right? If we have been let down time and time again by someone who makes commitments but they can't keep them, then we have a hard time listening to what they have to say because they feel like empty promises. If we don't trust a person, then we will always second guess what they say. Which means we're never really listening but thinking all the while they don't know what they're talking about. We don't listen if we don't respect what someone has to say. And the next way we don't listen is that it's not the right moment. When our attention is focused on something else, it's really hard to listen. We could be watching television or, reading a book and our partner is asking us about plans for the weekend. And since our attention is on the television or in the chapter that we're in, we're just not listening. Or if someone is busy unloading groceries and suddenly asks to pay attention to an issue that's going on, it's really hard to listen because of the action that we're in the middle of, right? So that's another reason why we don't listen. And the last reason we don't listen is because we don't want to hear the truth. We don't want to hear the truth. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable, which means it's really hard to listen when someone is expressing their thoughts and their feelings about something that we've done, that maybe we messed something up, or that was painful for them, or that it had consequences for them. So when greeted by any of the reactions above, it's easy to shut down as well, to react, to judge, to criticize, and believe we know better than the other person. And we get depressed at times, right? Because we're not getting what we want. So we're not being heard. So in turn, we stop hearing whomever we're with, and then the cycle just continues. So how do we stop the cycle? How do we stop this cycle? First, we want to understand where the listener is coming from, right? What hurt is behind the reaction. Once that's in place, then it's easier for us to understand how to interact and how to be heard. So if your listener takes things personally, right? People take things personally because whatever it is that is being said, they believe has to do with them. You could leave a piece of chicken on the plate, and because they cooked it, they automatically believe you didn't like the chicken, when in fact you may just be full. So in this situation, your listener believes they are responsible for everything. So how do you get someone who is so focused on themselves to listen to what you're saying? Shift the focus away from them and onto you. Taking responsibility for your own feelings and actions, clearing out evaluation so that the other sees our wants and needs as a direct reflection of what we feel without it having to do with them. If your listener thinks they know you better than you know yourself, this kind of listener believes they know the truth about most everything, that they know the truth about you. The guy in the checkout at the grocery store, the doctor who went through medical school. Sometimes they even know more about your friend's dog than your friend, right? This kind of listening leads to misunderstandings because it's all based on assumptions. And when called into question, it's possible that that person will get defensive and then blame the other person. And so there's no clarity here whatsoever. To speak so we're heard in this situation, it's important to be really specific. The clearer we are in our communication around what we like, what we don't like, want, don't want, need, desire, and feel, the easier it is for the person to learn from us instead of to assume. Also, asking questions to clarify assumptions being made can open up communication. Okay? Now, if your listener doesn't trust your opinion, so maybe at times we've let our listener down. We've said we would do something and didn't follow through, or we didn't listen or try to understand where they were coming from when they needed us. Or maybe it wasn't us that created this response, but situations with others that have left the listener just a bit skeptical. So to be heard in this situation, we need to become more of an active listener. By paying attention to our listener, making eye contact, and letting them be heard, we create trust, right? We confirm our respect for their words, and in turn, a trust is formed. So this is an opportunity for us to become more conscious and responsible of our interaction with the listener so they feel safe enough to then listen when we have something we need to say. So let's say your listener is not in the right moment. If your listener is not in the right moment, okay, so this one has somewhat of an easy fix. It's all about asking the person when a good time is to talk with them, holding back a bit when you want to say something, and asking if this is an okay time to talk about something serious, ask a question, etc. This isn't to say you need permission to speak, but if you want to make sure the person you are with is listening, they need to be in a position where they are open and ready to hear you. And if your listener can't hear the truth, okay, so most people who can't hear the truth, they have a really hard time seeing things as they really are. They avoid their fears, unresolved issues, anything that brings discomfort. So the reason to ignore the uncomfortable is to keep in balance, right? However, the more we avoid issues like this, the more issues we create. So how then in this situation can we be heard? By showing the listener that fear and pain are a part of life, right? That facing what could potentially push us out of our comfort zone is no big thing and that we can deal with it, right? You assure the listener that you aren't trying to disrupt their view of the world, but that if that happens, it's okay that it does. Okay, so I'd really love to know if this was helpful to you. Which of the 5 reasons have you encountered from others where when you're speaking you've noticed that others aren't listening, or where you haven't been listening? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have found this content interesting, helpful, has it resonated in some way, go ahead and click subscribe so that we're connected. All right, lots of love. Talk to you soon.